Out here in the American Midwest, trust isn't given lightly, it's earned over years of hard work and long days in the field. In this video, we're taking a quiet walk back through time to revisit 5 classic tractors that American farmers still trust today. These are machines built from real steel, shaped by honest labor, and proven through generations. They didn't just work the land, they became part of the family. Settle in, and let's begin where true farm trust was forged. John Deere Model A. Back in 1934, out here in the American Midwest, farming was still done the hard way. The land was strong, but times were tough. The Dust Bowl years had tested both soil and spirit, and farmers didn't need promises, they needed machines that would stay with them, season after season. That was the world that gave birth to the John Deere Model A, built in Waterloo, Iowa. When it first rolled out, the Model A sold for just under $1,000. To many families, that was a serious investment. But it was one they believed in. Between 1934 and the early 1950s, more than 100,000 of these tractors were produced, and today, many still sit proudly in barns and sheds across Iowa, Illinois, and Nebraska. At farm auctions, a well-kept Model A isn't just a tractor, it's a piece of living history. Under that long, unmistakable green hood lived a 2-cylinder gasoline engine, roughly 309 cubic inches in displacement. It produced around 34 horsepower on the belt and about 25 horsepower at the drawbar. Those numbers may sound modest today, but back then, it meant a farmer could plow deeper, pull longer, and work ground that once demanded teams of horses. The Model A didn't rush. It worked at its own steady pace, and if you ever heard one in the early morning, you know the sound, that slow, rhythmic put, put, put echoing across open fields. It wasn't noise, it was reassurance. It told you the tractor was alive, steady, and ready to work. Farmers trusted the Model A because it was built simply and honestly, no complicated systems, no unnecessary parts. If something went wrong, you could fix it with basic tools, often right there in the field. Replacement parts were common, affordable, and interchangeable. That simplicity kept farms running when money was tight and time was short. Operating a Model A was an experience you felt in your bones, the gentle vibration through the seat, the smell of warm oil and fresh-turned soil, a cool breeze rolling through the corn rows as the sun climbed higher. This wasn't just machinery, it was a working partner. Even today, nearly 90 years later, many John Deere Model A tractors still start, still pull, and still do real work. That kind of longevity isn't an accident. It's proof of steel cast thick, gears cut true, and engineering guided by people who understood farm life. So why do farmers still trust tractors like the Model A? Because they were built to last a lifetime, not just until the warranty ran out. Steel remembers every season it survives, and while the Model A set the standard for dependable power, the tractor coming up next would change how farms worked and how families farmed forever. Farmall Model H. By the time 1939 arrived, American farming was standing at a crossroads. Fields were getting larger, labor was harder to find, and family farms needed more than raw pulling power. They needed efficiency, balance, and versatility. Horses were fading, and tractors were no longer a luxury, they were becoming a necessity. That's when International Harvester introduced the Farmall Model H, built in Rock Island, Illinois, right in the heart of farm country. When new, a Farmall H sold for around $1,000, depending on equipment. Between 1939 and the early 1950s, more than 390,000 units were produced. That number alone tells you something important. Farmers didn't just try the Farmall H, they trusted it, and across Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, it quickly became a familiar sight, working row crops from spring planting to fall harvest. Powering the Model H was a 4-cylinder gasoline engine, about 152 cubic inches in displacement. It delivered roughly 26 horsepower, paired with a dependable transmission that gave farmers smooth control in the field. It wasn't built to race, it was built to work all day without complaint. What truly set the Farmall H apart was how it handled. Its balanced design and adjustable front end made it ideal for row crop farming. You could cultivate corn in the morning, mow hay after lunch, and pull a loaded wagon home before supper. One tractor, many jobs. Climb up onto the seat of a Farmall H, and you immediately felt the difference. The steering was lighter than older machines, the engine ran smooth and even, the sound was steady, confident, a low hum that told you everything was working just as it should. Farmers appreciated that the Model H was forgiving. It started reliably, it didn't overcomplicate things, and when something needed attention, you didn't need a dealership full of specialists. A farmer with experience or a neighbor with a wrench could usually handle it. That ease of repair is one reason so many Farmall H tractors are still running today. Parts are plentiful, Knowledge has been passed down, and the design itself invites maintenance instead of resisting it. More than anything, the Farmall H helped transform small family farms into efficient, productive operations. It gave farmers confidence, the confidence to take on more land, more work, and a future built on dependable machinery. The Farmall H didn't just earn its place in the shed, it earned its place in the family. A good tractor earns its keep every sunrise. But the next machine on our list didn't just help farmers work the land, it put modern farming within reach of nearly everyone. Ford 8N. By 1947, the war was over, and America was ready to move forward. Across the Midwest, young families were returning to the land, farms were rebuilding, and farmers wanted progress, but it had to be practical, and it had to be affordable. That's when Ford Motor Company, out of Dearborn, Michigan, introduced the tractor that would change small farm agriculture forever, the Ford 8N. When it went on sale, the Ford 8N carried a price tag of roughly $1,400, depending on options. Nearly 500,000 units would be built in just a few short years, in towns and counties across the Heartland. It seemed like every other farm had one parked by the barn. Under the hood sat a 4-cylinder gasoline engine, about 119 cubic inches in size, producing roughly 23 horsepower. By raw numbers, it wasn't the strongest tractor of its time, but strength was never its true purpose. What truly set the Ford 8N apart was its 3-point hydraulic hitch system. For the first time, implements didn't just drag behind a tractor, they became part of it. Plows lifted smoothly at the end of a row, mowers followed the ground evenly, work became safer, faster, and more precise. One man could now do what once took several. Climbing onto a Ford 8N felt welcoming, the controls were simple, the view was open, the tractor responded gently, even for inexperienced operators, many farmers. Remember learning to drive on an 8N, hands barely reaching the wheel, feet learning the clutch by feel. It was a machine that taught patience and confidence at the same time. In the field, the 8N had its own character. The engine note was smooth and steady, hydraulics hissed softly as implements lifted and lowered, dust floated behind as the tractor moved across familiar ground, row by row. Farmers trusted the 8N because it didn't ask for much: fuel it, maintain it, and it would show up every morning ready to work. Even today, decades later, thousands of Ford 8N tractors are still running. Some are restored, many are not, but restored or worn, they still start, still pull, and still earn their keep. The Ford 8N didn't just sell tractors, it sold opportunity, the chance for ordinary families to farm efficiently, independently, and with pride. A simple idea can change a lifetime. But the next tractor on our list would take that idea even further, bringing balance, efficiency, and global influence to American fields. Massey Ferguson 35. By the mid-1950s, American farming had entered a new rhythm. Fields were better managed, equipment more refined, and farmers expected tractors not only to work hard, but to work smart. Power still mattered, but so did efficiency, comfort, and balance. In 1956, that philosophy arrived on American soil in the form of the Massey Ferguson 35, built through a partnership that stretched from Detroit, Michigan, to Coventry, England. The MF-35 represented something different. It wasn't just an American tractor, it was a global one. New, it sold for roughly $2,000, and thousands found homes on Midwest farms where versatility mattered more than brute size. Under its compact hood were 4-cylinder engines, offered in both gasoline and diesel versions, producing around 35 horsepower. What farmers noticed right away wasn't just the power, it was how smoothly that power was delivered. The MF-35 felt balanced, the weight was right, the steering was light, and the tractor seemed to move with the land instead of fighting it. Out in the field, that balance made long days easier, less fuel burned, less strain on the operator, and steady, predictable performance from morning until sundown. The sound of an MF-35 was softer than many tractors of its era, a calm, confident engine note. The smell of diesel or gasoline mixing with cut hay, a tractor that worked without demanding attention. Farmers appreciated how practical the MF-35 was to own. Maintenance was straightforward, parts were widely available, and the design encouraged regular care rather than punishing neglect. That's why so many MF-35 tractors are still working today, not as showpieces, but as honest machines doing honest labor. For many families, the MF-35 became the bridge between old-style farming and a more modern approach. It carried tradition forward without leaving it behind. A well-balanced machine carries more than weight, it carries trust. And now, with one tractor left on our list, we come to the machine that brought innovation and strength together to close this chapter of American farm history. Allis-Chalmers WD. When the Allis-Chalmers WD arrived in 1948, American farming was no longer experimenting with tractors, it was depending on them. Farmers wanted machines that could work longer days, handle more equipment, and still stand up to years of hard use. Allis-Chalmers, based in West Allis, Wisconsin, answered that call with a tractor that was quietly ahead of its time. The WD sold for roughly $1,500 when new, and more than 140,000 units were built across Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, and the Dakotas. Orange WD tractors became a common sight, pulling plows in the spring and wagons in the fall. Under the hood sat a 4-cylinder gasoline engine, delivering around 30 horsepower, paired with one of the WD's most important features, a form of live power takeoff. At a time when many tractors still forced operators to stop everything when the clutch was pressed, the WD allowed implements to keep working. That meant better control, safer operation, and higher productivity. In the field, the Allis-Chalmers WD felt strong and sure-footed. The engine had a confident tone, the tractor held its ground under load, and the operator felt in command of the work instead of reacting to it. Farmers respected the WD because it introduced new ideas without sacrificing reliability. It was innovative, but not fragile, advanced, but still easy to maintain. Many WD tractors remain in service today, often wearing faded orange paint and carrying decades of stories in their steel. They start with a familiar sound, settle into a steady rhythm, and go back to work like they always have. Looking back across all 5 tractors we've talked about, the John Deere Model A, the Farmall H, the Ford 8N, the Massey Ferguson 35, and the Allis-Chalmers WD, one truth stands clear: these machines weren't built for quick replacement, they were built to last a lifetime. They represent the pride of the American heartland, the belief that hard work deserves honest tools, and that trust, once earned, lasts for generations. If one of these tractors played a role in your farm story, we'd love to hear it. Share your memories in the comments, pass these stories along, and subscribe for more voices from America's fields. Thank you for listening, and thank you for keeping this legacy alive.